Say something.
What should I say?
Whatever. Say something.
What should I say?
Whatever. Now, let's start from the beginning. Yes. Cholera. I'm so sorry.
Please. I know I will recover if I become an engineer, and then everything will work out for the best.
You'll start as a regular engineer. You'll be in charge of fixing the electric motors and DC generators.
But Mr. Batchelor promised me that
I don't care what he promised you. I employ people and I define what they do in my company. And you, young man, will have to work hard to prove your value to me.
Of course, I was never given the chief engineer position. I was an immigrant with 4 cents in my pocket. I had 2 options to choose from. I could beg in the street or show that man my worth. I began to work like a man possessed. For 6 months, I worked myself to death repairing DC electric motors 18 to 20 hours a day. But the more I worked, the more I understood that direct current was not perfect at all. So I started to design my own concept of a motor which would be able to produce a new kind of current, alternating current. As opposed to Edison's preference, direct current. Alternating current is changing its magnitude and direction all the time. These changes are called the frequency. But the most important difference between AC and DC is that the direct current power plant using the usual voltage can transmit electricity effectively really no more than 1 mile. This means that in order to illuminate New York using direct current power plants, we had to build a huge network of local stations. But with alternating current, this would not be the case. Using AC to illuminate New York, we needed only one big power plant.
I have been told that you've been working double shifts. Why is that? Can't you keep up with your own job?
I can, but I'm also working on the AC machine as well.
But AC makes no sense. My DC generator works perfectly.
Well, not quite.
Show me.
It could be improved. Take a look at what I've designed here.
You have some brains, but you're a foolish immigrant. Now hear this. If somehow your crazy ideas can manage to improve my inventions, I will pay you $50,000. Understand?
I'll do it.
Not bad. That is, not bad for an immigrant.
So when will I be getting my $50,000?
50,000? Young man, you don't seem to understand American humor. Taking into account your efforts, I'm willing to increase your salary from $18 a week to, let's say, $26 a week.
Business by nature is filled with cheating, and there was nothing uniquely American in the fact that I was duped. But it was one thing to be deceived by the functionaries in Edison's office in Paris, but here, I quit immediately. I was forever disillusioned in the great American inventor Edison. For 7 years, I worked in my laboratory studying magnetic fields and high-frequency currents. It was a productive period for me. As a result of my work, I received many patents, almost as many as Edison. As a result, The American Institute of Electrical Engineers invited me to lecture about my achievements in front of the most prominent electrical engineers of that time. I lit lamps simply by putting them in an alternating electromagnetic field. I showed how to transmit electricity without wires. I sent out lightning and used my hands to pass a current of 1,000,000 volts through my body. It was a huge success. I received a great ovation, and for the first time was called by my peers a man of the future. They offered me Faraday's chair, saying that since his death, no one else had been worthy to sit in it. Then they let me sip the whiskey from Faraday's cherished bottle. It was a great honor. Then I would take them all to my laboratory. I showed various interesting experiments, and we talked about the future of science. Those evenings were unforgettable. I met most of these people thanks to my friendship with Robert Johnson, the chief editor of Century magazine, and his wife, Catherine. In the center of my lab, I built this massive transformer. One end of its primary winding was grounded, and the other end I raised to a great height. As a result, this device was able to store energy and produce a lightning-like current of several million volts and a frequency of 150,000 hertz. But I wanted more. I wanted to know whether this technology could transmit energy wirelessly over long distances using the ground as a transmitter. Not far from the lab, I put 200 bulbs in the ground and waited for a storm. As soon as the ball at the top of the mast was struck by lightning, my laboratory came to life. The transformer collected the lightning energy and threw it into the atmosphere with triple force. Try to imagine it. I had created man-made lightning that was 40 meters long. The energy flow covered the city. The entire city was literally saturated with electricity. I didn't expect such an effect, but my theories had been proven. I was able to transmit an electric charge wirelessly across the ground. 200 bulbs were lit at a 25-mile radius from the Tower Razam. Unfortunately, the local power station was not ready for such a large-scale experiment. The city's generator simply burnt out. After that incredible experience, I wrote an article about the possible uses of currents transmitted by high-frequency standing wave energy. This had practical application for lighting, heating, the control and movement of electric transport. Electricity could be used everywhere. It could be transported through the ground, in the air, used for automatic machines. The wireless uses of electricity are endless. I was sure that I could accumulate the energy extracted from the air anywhere in the world and use that energy in any kind of form, as an explosion of thousands of bombs or a man-made aurora borealis. I lit the sky for thousands of miles. However, Morgan, that blind man, wasn't inspired.
And I'll give you $150,000 to cover your costs of research. After that, we'll talk.
Radio. What mediocrity.
Popov! In 1893, I developed my first radio 5 years before then!
Of course, what I'm saying is, this is all about...
Morgan cut off all his funding. The Wardenclyffe project was shut down. In 1917, in the middle of the First World War, the tower, which could have been the beginning of free electricity, was destroyed. However, Morgan didn't stop me from managing to achieve something monumental. I was able to conduct only one complete experiment under the Wardenclyffe project. But how great it was! To avoid any loss of life, I found the most remote location in eastern Siberia and sent through the ionosphere a huge burst of energy to Tunguska. Once I decided to prove to the general public that energy is present in the air, so I designed and assembled an 80-horsepower alternating current electric motor. Then I installed it in a new car, replacing the gasoline engine as its power source. My electric motor functioned flawlessly for an entire week without an additional power source. It also accelerated the car up to a speed of 150 kilometers per hour. But to my great surprise, none of the entrepreneurs or the public were interested in my invention. It was astounding. Was there really no one who would be interested in something that cannot be sold? Because people would never have to pay for energy from the air. I was the one who invented the ability to control ships and airplanes by radio frequency. I introduced the first radio-controlled ship in 1898 during the New York Electrical Exhibition. Once I had perfected this technology, I brought about the era of larger, more practical toys. My research and experiments made it possible to control a warship remotely from the shore at a distance of 25 nautical miles. You see, it's really quite simple. Continuous control is possible via an automatically received signal of disparity between the desired and present location of the ship you're controlling, so you can make any object move to wherever you want. Naturally, the military immediately seized on the opportunity to control warships using radio waves. Since that time, the Pentagon has kept their eye on me. It is impossible to refuse them. At their request, I invented a radar locator to detect enemy submarines. Originally, I designed this instrument to search for minerals. I had other great ideas they could use. I was able to generate powerful electromagnetic fields that bend light and radio waves around any object, making the object completely invisible. This project was called Rainbow, but I doubt whether you have ever heard of it. The military can keep its secrets. In 1915, the Nobel Committee even wanted to give me the Nobel Prize in Physics, but I refused it. The reason? They wanted me to share it with Edison. My mind could still create a massively destructive weapon. The Tunguska meteorite was only the beginning. I designed the rays of peace which could destroy thousands of planes 100 miles away. Every country would be able to defend itself with an invisible Great Wall by putting towers with the rays of peace along their nation's borders. Of course, the military would give anything to get their hands on my rays of peace, so they could turn them into rays of death. Because if my rays of peace were placed in a certain configuration, anything surrounded by them would be utterly destroyed. I could be the main secret weapon of the Pentagon, but I hate war. It would be possible to send any information wirelessly anywhere, and energy too. Imagine this if you can. We will be able to send electricity wirelessly to the remotest areas on Earth. Another startling development will be the creation of artificial intelligence helping humans in their activities, but it will also be used as a weapon capable of manipulating people. The military will use microwaves of energy to disable communications and incapacitate the electronic devices of their enemy. And by gaining control of ionospheric energy on a global scale, we will be able to create earthquakes. I hate the military. They enjoy spilling blood too much. I'd really like to do something for ordinary people.